need to be here. I need to know how not to be broke. But anyway, we're going to have prayer and we're going to get started. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this gathering, Lord, which really teaches us how to be better stewards and managers of money. And so, God, I pray that you be with Sister Michelle as she presents to us today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good afternoon. God is so good that when I told you before that I really was beyond broke, you can't, what you did? Oh, my shirt. When I tell you that I was beyond broke, and what God has done, he put me in places, he put people in my life so when he said what I specialize in, I'm almost like a general practitioner. You know, when you go to a general practitioner doctor, they can kind of do almost everything. And it's been God. It's nothing but God. So I'm grateful. Okay, let's get going because I got lots to do. This might be a little too high. I don't know. Where you twist it? Thank you. Just a teeny bit. Yeah, just a little. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, let's get started. Listen, I hope that yesterday wasn't just you listening. I'm so serious. I really hope that you took a note or two. I hope that you, hopefully, before you went to bed last night or this morning after worship, you kind of glanced at it and said, and you put a date and you said, when I get home on Blady-Blay, I'm gonna, really, I can't say this enough that I love going to workshops and seminars. And when you have a presenter you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna do this. And you know, you go home and you don't do it. I'm really, because I prayed for you guys in advance. I didn't know who would be here, but I'm like, Lord, please, your health, your money, these are things that please. All right, let's go. How not to be broke, and I gotta start with my disclaimer. This is not legal advice. This is not even investment device. This is only for educational purposes. You ready to get started? Yesterday we talked about how not to be broke. And I pretty much was trying to talk the difference between broke and poor because, you know, so broke is a temporary situation. It means like right now I ain't got it. You broke. Poor is a more chronic problem because usually it ain't no like, right now I don't have the money, but poor, I don't have it right now, I'm not gonna have it tomorrow. I'm not even sure when I'm gonna have it. And I can't even meet my basic needs. But there's another type of poverty, which is the poverty of mind. And so some of us are not poor, but we have a poor mindset. That means the way we look at money, the way we deal with our finances, the way we ignore stuff is a poor mindset. And you don't want that either. You want nothing to do with poor if you can help it. Because God says, I came to give you life and have it more abundantly. All right. So we know the poor will always be with us. He told us in the Bible. But even though the poor will always be with us, I don't want it to be us. You got it? I want to be the one that he says you will be a lender and not a borrower. You get what I'm saying? All right. So you can't have a poor mindset and then want to be a lender and not a borrower. So we talked about that. So I said, today, this week, 3 days, we're going to talk about ways to not be broke or poor, because I want you, if you have a poor mindset or if you are poor, and a lot of times the people who are legitimately poor, unfortunately, have a poor mindset because they don't think they'll ever get out of it, so they're not even going to look for a way out. So the first thing I said was, you got to create and, okay, can I get a little more in it? Create and follow a budget, because some of us will create a budget. We'll put some numbers down, and then you said in the budget, we're not going to spend, honey, we're not going to spend more than $400 a month on groceries. And then what do? You ain't got a plan to not do that. So I even did that, gave you ways to implement the budget. Because if you just have a budget and you don't have a way to make sure you follow the budget, you're not going to follow the budget. And so again, the budget, it starts with your income, the stuff that comes home. Let's not use gross numbers, we're using net numbers. Then you subtract giving. I told you that you got to give. Givers get that. That's the way to live. If everything's about you, it's super duper selfish. I told you about saving and investment, that one day something is bound to happen because we live on this place called Earth. And because of sin, something's going to happen. And if you don't save something at some point, you're going to find yourself broke. Then I said we're going to subtract essential expenses. And essential expenses are things that you need in order to survive, which is like your shelter, your food, you know what I'm saying. Then you're gonna subtract discretionary expenses. These are things that you don't need to survive. You know, you don't need to get your nails done to survive or get your hair done to survive. It makes you feel better to do something. You wanna go on a trip, or you wanna update your wardrobe because you lost some weight, but you don't have the money because you never budgeted for things that you want, or now you wanna help your grandchild in school. You know what I'm saying? You gotta look at some of the things you want and you gotta budget that in. You put them all together, and I don't care how good or bad the numbers are. It might show at the end you're in the hole $10 million. You still need to see it. So then you can take a minute to evaluate and see what's the most important. How can I do this and that? It might make you rethink how you bring your money in or how you spend your money. Got it? All right. Today, we're going to talk about how not to be broke. Let's get prepared for retirement. And I know in our audience, I don't see anybody about 20 years old or 30 years old. And I'm not going to, I don't know our ages, but these are the people I wish we can talk to. So number one, if you got a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old in your family, it's a child, a grandchild, a niece, nephew, cousin. I can't, I mean, and you all can testify, some of you, you're not where you want to be and you're retired. You wish you had more money. If we can just beat it in their heads and tell them how if you don't die today, and if God delays his coming, you will wake up and you're 40. Then you'll wake up and you're 55. Then you'll wake up and you're 62. And then they're going to start telling you better start taking Social Security, and it's too late. So I really love to target people in their 20s and 30s, but then it doesn't matter if you're older because there's still hope for all of us. Regardless, there's something we can do. So we're going to talk about preparing for retirement. Let's go. 1 in 3 Americans got how much ready for how much together for retirement? How much? So I hate to do this to you, but I want to look at your row. Look at the person to your left and the right. That's 3 of you. 1 of you has 0 for retirement. Yeah, this is serious. 1 out of 3 has nothing for retirement. All right, but it's even worse for women. For women, 38% of us have nothing for retirement. So when you look at 10 women, about 4 of them have nothing. So we can just count the women. 4 of them have absolutely nothing for retirement. And because of that, in retirement, we tend to be broke. A lot of retirees don't have it. That's why they're living in subsidized housing. That's why they're hoping that there's some food handouts. They're hoping that their children or grandchildren are doing something extra for them because they are broke. They don't have enough money to survive financially. A reason you should be prepared for retirement is because sometimes you might think, well, I'm not going to retire till I'm 62 or 65 or 67. You got your magic number. But what happens in reality is some people have to retire earlier than they wanted to. For example, because of your skills are outdated, you know, the workforce is like, listen, sweetie, you're not trying to learn technology. You ain't doing good with it. You're typing so slow. We're going to move you on out of that job. 10% of people retire early because of that. We got 22% of people had to retire early and earlier than they wanted to because they had to take care of their spouse or a family member. They didn't plan that. Then we have, I'm gonna go to the big one, downsizing and closing of companies. 27% of people had to retire when they didn't want to because their company closed down. And then I'm gonna do the worst, 60% of the people that retire is because they have health issues. And you didn't know that. 3 years prior, you're in good health. And then something happens because we live on this planet, and now you gotta retire early. The reason why, I don't care how old you are, please, please work on getting better prepared for retirement, because there are a lot of us who had to retire earlier than we planned because life happens. Now, I mentioned to you yesterday, one of my favorite textbooks for finance is really the Bible. And I almost know all of the financial texts in the Bible. Anything about numbers, I kind of know about the Bible. And the Bible talks about this too. In Proverbs, the wise man said, a wise man or a woman thinks ahead. A fool doesn't and even brags about it. The Bible is saying you got to think ahead, because if God delays his coming, you're going to get older. And at some point you can't work, or you won't work, or they won't even let you work. How are you going to survive? No one is just going to give us money. And we're not even going to talk about Social Security, which we won't even go there for right now. The point is, the Bible is telling us we have to be prepared for the future, so we have to plan. Therefore, we have to save and invest. Before I go on, tomorrow I will have handouts for yesterday, today, and tomorrow's things. And just in case, I will have some handouts for you. I hate giving out handouts because people tend not to look at them, and it's a waste of paper, and I'm frugal and I hate to waste, and it will be on both sides of the sheet. But I will have handouts for you tomorrow. Okay, but there's a difference between saving and investing. And so today, there's 2 points I want to get out of this. I need you to understand investments. And then I need to understand, am I ready to retire? Those are my 2 points today. Saving. Saving is just putting money aside for present use. Investing is putting money aside for future use. Now, when you save, it's usually put in a liquid account. That's an accounting term, and I don't like all those accounting terms, even though I am an accountant. I like to bring it, make it simple. Let me tell you what a liquid account is. It's an account that you can quickly go get your money. So when you put your $10 in a savings account, you can go back an hour later and say, give me my $10 back. That's considered liquid. You can get it right back. Your investments are put in accounts that are less liquid. So when you invest in that, like for example, you go buy a house, that's an investment. You can't go back an hour later and say, give me my money back for that house. It's not quite that simple. You can sell it. You may not even get the money you bought it for. You might get more or less, but it's less liquid. Therefore, there's a purpose for saving and there's a purpose for investing. The purpose for saving, one of the purposes is that there are times you need to put money aside. So like yesterday, I talked about the AAA, and if you're putting in your budget $200 a month for vacation, but the vacation is 8 months later, you gotta put that money aside. You want it in an account that's pretty liquid, so that 8 months later, you can go in and get your money back and take your trip. You get what I'm saying? So that's why savings is for present needs. Investing is for future needs, and I'm explaining to you why you gotta invest. Well, I'll do it now. Let's talk about why you have to invest. Number one reason, I'm gonna give you 2 reasons, but one reason why we should invest is because of this word called, what called? So Michelle, what really is inflation? Inflation is the fact that prices of things go up. And when the price of something goes up, then your value of your dollar goes down. For example, in 1980, which is 44 years ago, if you had $10,000 and you decided to invest it by putting it under your mattress because you don't believe the banking system and they're gonna take your money, and I ain't trusting nobody with this money, and I worked hard for my $10,000. Today, that would only be able to buy $3,196 worth of stuff. Why? Because inflation. The price of things have gone up 44 years. If in 1980 you decide to buy some gold, and gold is a type of investment, today that gold would be worth $8,726, which is less than the 10 you originally spent. If you in 1980 did $10,000 and you bought a house, that house would be worth about $14,712. So that one, you put in your 10, you're gonna get back at that time a little bit more than you paid. But had you put that 10 in the S&P 500, and I'm gonna talk about that in a minute, which is the stock market, that 10,000 would be worth how much? I need to hear this number. How much? Y'all need to shout this number. If you put it under your mattress, it was $3,000, and this is what? This is why you invest. Because, I love this, there's currently no safe investment. Even thinking that you putting it on your mattress is safe? Oh, please. A fire, a rat or some rodents come in and eat it up. Your grandkids or your kids one day lift your mattress to clean it and say, and thank you, Lord. There is no safe. Cash is not safe. None of this stuff is safe. But I will tell you this, cash is always losing value to inflation, because inflation will happen. The price of goods go up. And if all you're doing is cash, if all you're doing is saving, because when you save, you're saving, the interest rate in savings are always low, because that's a whole nother thing about what they do with your money and why interest rates are always lower than almost any other investment. What I'm saying is, the number one reason for you to invest is because inflation will be here, and the only way to catch yourself from inflation is to do some type of investment. Because even gold, which is an investment, at least didn't totally decimate your 10,000. You see what I'm saying? So what is the number one reason you need to invest? Okay, inflation. Y'all with me? All right, all right, all right. Savings only pays you one way, interest. And again, the interest rate on savings is much lower than a lot of other investments. But again, your principal is not at risk. And your principal is the money that you put in. So when I put my $10 in or my $1,000 in, that's my principal. It's not at risk. You should go back and get it. However, because there's no real risk to it, you're not getting paid a lot. You're getting back some interest. On the other hand, investments get money several different ways. This is why it's a better thing to do, is to invest for the future. Number one, investments makes capital gains. Capital gains is the increase of a price of an item over time. So again, you purchased your house for $100,000. 6 years later, it's worth $200,000. That gain is called a capital gains. You buy stock at one price, it goes up to another price, capital gains. Well, then investments also have interest, because you can buy bonds and you earn interest from that. Then there's dividends. If you decide to purchase stocks or mutual funds, a lot of the companies pay out a portion of their profits, and they call that dividends. So that's more money you make from that investment. And then there's also ordinary income. So if you buy, let's say, a property and you decide to rent it out, not only is the property going up in value if your house goes up, but you're also collecting rental income. You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of different ways you can make money from investments. The big thing, though, is your principal might be at risk, which means the money that you spent buying that investment, you may not get it all back when you want to sell. You get what I'm saying? So let me give you an illustration of that. Let's say you're 25 years old and you make $40,000 a year. And every year you get a 3.7% raise, and you decide to save 15% of your salary every year. And you do this for 40 years. My question to you is, how much will you have when you're 65? Can somebody throw out a number? Nobody wants to throw out a number? Somebody said $1 million. All right, nobody wants, y'all don't want to play with me today? 80,000. Okay, here's the answer. It depends. Well, what does it depend on, Michelle? It depends. If I keep that cash under my mattress, I would have about $563,000. If I decide to put it into a savings account where the interest is lower, I would have $1.27 million. But had I put it in the stock market, how much money would I have had? How much? Yeah, 4.57 million. So because I kept it in cash, how much money did I lose? Yeah, $4 million. And if I decide to put in the savings instead, how much did I lose? No. $3.3 million, because I only earned $1.27 million. I'm just giving you an illustration to explain to you investments. You're paid out several different ways, and over time, nothing has beat an investment. Interest on the cash won't do it. Cash under the mattress won't do it. Nothing has been better with money than investments over time. And that is why you only want to put money into investments for the long term. Because yes, you heard the stock goes up and the stock goes down. It does. And we're going to explain now what the stock is. It does. But over time, nothing has beat it. Okay? So what is this stock market thing? It's just a marketplace. It's a place where people buy and sell commodities. Let me give you an example. My name is Michelle France. I have an extra $500. I want to do something with it. So I go to the stock market. And in there, I can invest in companies. I don't like that, my pointer. Here we go. I can invest in some companies. Well, what does that even mean, invest in companies? I'm actually purchasing a piece of a company. So let me give you an example. Let's say today I want to start a restaurant. I want to sell burgers. For me to open up a burger restaurant, it's going to cost me some cash. I got to buy the equipment. I got to pay for the rent. I got to get the food. So let's say conservatively I need about $80,000 to $100,000 because I'm going to sell some veggie burgers and it's going to be popular and I'm going to be making some good money in my business. Got what I'm saying? I can come up with 80 or 90, 100,000 or more, but if I don't have that money, I can't get that today. Or I could say, how about I buy into McDonald's? Because people are already eating their burgers, and they're about to come up with some veggie burgers, and I don't have to come up with 80 and 90 and $100,000. So instead, I'll buy into McDonald's, and I'll buy shares, a share or shares of their stock, and I'll own a piece of their business, and I'm still in the burger business. So when you invest in a company, you're just buying a piece of the company. They like investors because they can use money to build and come up with new burgers and new ways. They need your money in order to grow their business. And so then if their business makes money, they'll give you some of that, and that's called dividends. So for example, at the end of the year, McDonald's made $1.6 million. If I'm an owner, I'm going to get a piece of that money. Now, the opposite is true. You buy McDonald's, I own McDonald's now. I spent $500 and I got a piece of McDonald's. But now, everybody's getting sick because they ate a burger, people are throwing up, they in the hospital, it's all in the news. Well now, nobody wants to eat McDonald's burgers. No one even want to hear about McDonald's. And so now this $500 I just invested might be worth hardly nothing because nobody want anything to do with McDonald's. They ain't going to have a profit, and I ain't going to get no dividends, and so now I'm in trouble. And this is the seriousness about the investments. Do not invest your money if you think I'm going to put it into McDonald's today. Then you see McDonald's is making trillions with this new burger, and then all of a sudden, folk are getting sick, and you try to snatch it out. It's for the long term, because over time, companies revamp, just like you. You revamp, they come back around, but it could take 5 years. It could take, you know what I'm saying? But this is all the stock market is. It's buying, investing in companies, and you try to choose companies you think are doing, and you kind of know some of the things, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I want to make sure these 2 points I get done today. But there's some things you see everybody's wearing, everybody's eating, everybody's talking about. That means people are spending money in that area. Just like if you want to start your own business, like, I would like a business. What should I invest? Oh, everybody got those white sneakers? What's up with the white sneakers? You want to look at it and you're going to start a business with the white sneakers. You get what I'm saying? It's the same thing here. Let me give you an example of a stock. This is Apple. And today, let's say it was today. Today I bought one share of Apple stock. I paid, when you see this price up here, that's how much it costs to buy one share, to own a little bit of Apple. This is the price you need, $125.12. All right? The next thing is, well, where is this Apple stock? In this corner, it'll tell you. It's on the NASDAQ, which I'll talk about in a minute, and that's the letters. So if I wanted to buy one share of Apple's, I need to make sure I find the NASDAQ in the stock market and say I want AAPL. Every stock has a letter. It's called a ticker name or ticker symbol. Next, this tells you at the beginning of the day, like let's say I bought this today, and let's say today is 6 o'clock at night. This morning, people started buying shares of Apple at $128.41. But I bought mine at $125, so I got a little bargain. In essence, I bought it a little less. The highest anybody bought the stock was $128.72. And the lowest price that anybody bought it was $125. I bought it at $125. So you're like, why did the price like flip around? Because the stock market is an ongoing thing. Like I said, I want some stock. Okay, one for you, and you want some? And the price goes up and down based on how many people want Apple stock. You follow what I'm saying? Follow me? Okay. Here, this tells me the day before it closed, it's the closing price, it closed at $127. So if you had bought this stock the day before, you would have paid $127. I paid $125, so I got mine a little cheaper than you do. And you lost a little bit of money. You spent $127, it was worth $125, so you lost a little bit. You get what I'm saying? This also shows you, if you were to look at 52 weeks, that the highest price it ever was $145, which tells me when I buy it at $125, if within 52 weeks it went as high as $145, it's possible it can do it again and go higher. I hope I'm making this real simple. Y'all with me? And then this shows you the lowest price it ever was. And the lowest it was in 52 weeks, only in 52 weeks, was $53, which means when I spent $125, it's possible it could go as low as or lower than $53. Y'all with me so far? Then you got this thing called dividend yield. This tells you what percent of profit, if there's a profit, you're gonna get. And this says that you would get 0.66% of profit. So if I had one share, 0.66% is 83 cents. And you're like, well, that ain't nothing. Well, let me tell you how this is something. This is just one share. As of February, let me get my number. As of February of this year, Apple actually had 15.44 billion shares out there. So if they're paying out this kind of percent, that means they had a profit of over $101 million, of which they were giving that away to the owners of this. So I only had one share. But if I had 10 shares, 100 shares, 10,000 shares, I'm not only getting the difference from this price, because going up or going down in the future, I'm also getting a piece of the profit of the company. This is why I'm saying investing pays you out several different ways. All right, a couple more things, and then I'm gonna get to them, but I want you to hear this. Investments. There's 3 different ways to get this. The first way I just talked about was stocks. And stocks are buying individual companies. So if I want McDonald's stock, Apple stock, that's purchasing stock individually, or Nike stock, or Apple stock, or Disney stock. You can also get mutual funds. Now with mutual funds, somebody is paid, they call it a manager, to gather different types of stock together based on whatever ideas they have. Let's say it's large cap. Large cap stock are stocks that are only for companies that are $10 billion or more. And so this manager picks these up. And so let's go again. I have $500 to invest. If I were buying stock, I would use $500 to buy just one stock. And let's say it's Apple. Or I can get my $500 and get a mutual fund. And with the mutual fund, again, it's a manager managing lots of different stocks in a particular reason. So that $500, it might own a small piece of Apple, a small piece of this, a small piece of that. So instead of owning one company, I'm owning pieces of a lot of different companies. Y'all get me? Then you have exchange traded funds. No one is managing this, but what it's doing is it's looking at different indexes, and it's investing based on the index. So you're saying, Michelle, you're saying a lot of stuff. Oh, okay, see. So let's talk about indexes. You heard of the Dow, because you don't even know what it is, but they'll say the Dow is up, the Dow is down. Or you might have heard S&P is up, S&P is down. Or you might have heard of NASDAQ. These are just indexes. So for example, there's tons and tons of stock. But we don't know if the market is doing good or bad. So they do indexes. They get a certain sector. So let's talk about S&P 500. The S&P 500 are looking at the 500 biggest companies and is looking at them and is saying, how did they do today? So when you hear that the S&P is up, that means those companies on average were up. And it gives you an idea. So you may not have stock in any of those companies, but if they were up, you can kind of assume maybe everybody was up. Now, you know that's not always true, because they could be up or down, and your particular company could be down, but it gives you an idea. Well, you can decide to invest in these indexes, which is whatever the stocks are in that, I want to invest in that pool. So you can either do that pool, you can, there's a manager that manages funds, or you can buy stocks individually. Does any of this make any sense? The Dow, by the way, is based on 30 largest companies from the NASDAQ and from the American Stock Exchange. So they're looking at 30 companies, but S&P is looking at like 500 companies. It's a bigger scope. And that's why the S&P could be up while the Dow is down, or vice versa, because they're looking at different numbers. Okay, maybe going too deep. Let me go on. So Michelle, why did you spend so much time talking about the stock market? Because of the wealth disparity. White households are 65% of American households. But tell me, what percent of wealth do you think they own of all the wealth in this country? 75%? 19%? Oh, 90%, 92%? It's 80. You know where most of their wealth comes from? We're not even talking about free slavery. We're not going to talk about discounted labor today, because you know black folks, we get paid less than they do. So they continue to get wealthy off of our cheaper labor, and because for years we did free to build this country. These people invest. They've been owning homes, which is an investment. It's a place that you live, but it's an investment. They've been owning homes before we own homes. And not only do they own homes, they can pick the homes in the neighborhood they want to. So some of us got to buy a house, praise be to God, by the time we were 40, 45. But our neighborhood ain't gonna get the kind of money that their neighborhood's gonna get. They've been in the stock market since the stock market was a stock market. Wealth comes from investing. I wanted to explain, because I know when I grew up, my daddy said, don't get in that little market thing. That's gambling. And so I thought it was gambling. But then I go to school and I get some knowledge. And then I work where I have to do investments and I understand it. It's no more gambling than if I decided I want to open up a burger joint. That's a gamble. And to be truthful, we can make whole life as a gamble at some point. But that's a gamble, and I can open up this burger joint, and my friend says, we will support your veggie burgers. And then a week or two later, y'all don't even come to get burgers. When y'all see me, I'm like, sister, so-and-so, I'll be right back. And I lost money there too. You get what I'm saying? But a lot of us blacks, we're afraid of the market, or because we don't understand the market. And because of that, a lot of our wealth is here. Of course, I'm like, again, I said it, I know the white folks done had plenty from free labor, et cetera. So when they say we're lazy, okay, we're not gonna go there today. What I'm saying is that there's a wealth disparity. Okay, how about the next one? The average net worth of white people in 2022 was about $285,000. And quickly, I would love to do a seminar just on net worth, because that's deep. But net worth really much tells you, of all the money that you made, how much did you keep? And that's a whole nother story. It's assets minus liabilities. Their average about $285,000. What do you think our average is? 40? 80? 100? 10,000. 44.9. What this means is that when they got their money, they invested it, they kept it, and so they have more assets than they have bills. They have more money in things that worth money than they have debt. We are the opposite, because we're consumers. We tend to be, as a race, consumers. We make our money, we look pretty, we dial it all up, and we don't save, we don't invest, we're not buying houses, and so we're not building any net assets. Therefore, I made a big deal about this, because investments is the way. Now, we're not going to talk about what, when, how, and again, this is educational purposes, but investments make more money over time than anything else. Therefore, if you wanted to invest $100 in 1945 and you wait until 2011 and you put it just in a savings account, you would have $1,900. You put $100 in one time, and over those number of years, you would have $1,900. But if you had put that same $100 in investments, and this is why our white compadres are doing better. Our Asians actually are doing better than the whites, but that's another story, because they invest. I'm gonna say one more thing. Oh, I wanted to put this in here. And of all the Americans, black Americans, only about 30-something% of us, 34, actually are in investments. 34% of us. And the reason why investments are deep, because they grow over time in the long run, and you're gonna need it, because in the long run, if God delays his coming and we're not dead, we're gonna need that money to live off, so we are not broke. I'm gonna say one more thing on this, and then we're gonna move on, because I wanna, okay, Michelle, what do I do? I'm gonna talk about what do I do. You know the story in the Bible actually was a parable that Jesus told about how there was a manager and he got ready to get out of town. He gave one person 5 talents, 3 talents, 1 talent, and the Bible says, read it, he says he gave it to them according to their ability. So the ability of one must have been 5, one was 2, one was 1. He came on back and said, what's up? The first guy said, hey, my 5 is 10. The second, my 2 is 2. They doubled it. How do you think they doubled it? By putting it in a savings account at 1.2% interest? They invested it. Here Jesus is saying, invest. And what happened to the one who, well, I'm black, and we weren't told about investments, and I'm told it's gambling, and I don't understand it, and so I just took that little one and did nothing with it. And what did Jesus say? Thank you very much, because you could have learned. You could have asked somebody. Sometimes there's seminars brought to your attention, and you decide to hear it and then go home and do nothing. And he says, no problem, boo. Give me your little one. And he gave it to the one that had the most, because they know that their ability was higher. You're talking about ability? I'm looking at nothing but ability. We're African Americans who were brought over to this country with nothing, changed their language, and we're here. So many of our brothers and sisters didn't even make it to this country. So those who made it here over the ships, we're from the strongest of the strong. Ability? That's us. We have the ability. And God wants us to do some investing, because he knows you're going to live to be long and old. And how are you going to take care of yourselves? You need the money. So let's get to it. All right, Michelle. So I'm not rich enough to invest. So then, Michelle, what do I do? Who said you had to be rich? Did y'all see my slide about Apple? One stock of Apple was about $125. You could save $5 a week for several weeks and buy 1 share. So it's not about being rich. It's about knowing what to do, making a decision to do it. But here are some ideas. Number 1, pensions are gone. Unless you work for the government or the school system, a pension is gone. A pension, for those who may not know, is when you used to work for somebody and they said, if you work so many years, we guarantee you when you retire, we're gonna give you so much a month. Them things been done gone. Now what they do is say, if you work here, you could put money in a 401k or a 403b. We might match it to some point. I don't know, we'll give you 1% for 2%. They may give you a match. Well, when you do, if you participate in your job's 401 or 403b plan, you're investing, as long as you make sure it's not in a money market account. But that's investing. That's one way to invest, is coming out of your paycheck, put it in the market, and make sure it's not in a money market account. And then there's one easy way to invest. You ain't got to do nothing. It comes out of your paycheck, and you get it. Plus, you might get free money if your company matches it. Okay, here's another way. StashInvest.com and Cash App, because everybody's using Cash App. You can now buy stock through Cash App, and you can start at $5. So, for example, that $125 you had 1 share of Apple, for $5 you're not gonna get a share, but you can get a small piece of it, and then over time they'll let you take your 5 and your 5, and then when you get enough, you got your share. But that's another way. Here's another way. Most companies, especially the big ones that give out dividends, because not every company gives out dividends, and again, dividends is a portion of the profit. Most companies, you can go to their website, go to Apple's website, look for the investor relations. You can contact them and they'll say, give us the 125, we'll get the share for you. And then you can have a discount broker, which pretty much means it's a grocery store for the marketplace. Let's call that the stock market. And a lot of those discount brokers will help you purchase stock. What I'm saying is you don't have to have a lot of money, and there's ways. And one of the biggest ways is starting at your job. Okay, how different ways to invest? I just mentioned 403Bs, 401Ks, IRAs, blah, 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 blah. Let's quickly go. Where's my time? Oh, my goodness. Let me hurry up, because I got to get to the other meat and potatoes. 401K and 403Bs are really the same thing. It's called 401K if you work for a profit company. It's called 403B if you work for a nonprofit. But it's the same thing. It's a tax law that pretty much says your employer can snatch money out of your check to help towards your retirement. And again, they may even match it. Now, there's limits every year. This year, the most that can come out of your paycheck is $23,000. Unless you're over 50, you can go up to $30,000. But the good thing about this is that it's tax deferred, because what happens is, let's say I make $53,000 a year, and so I put $23,000 of it into the market. Then I'm only, on my W-2, it's going to say I only earned $30,000 because it's subtracting it. You don't have to pay taxes on that money. But when you take it out later, when you're 60, 70, or whatever, that's when you'll pay the taxes on it. And then it's an easy way to invest because it's coming right out of your paycheck. You just tell it, do you want it to buy this? You want it to buy that? You tell it what you want it to buy, and they go buy it for you. Okay. Next one is IRAs. I'm talking briefly traditional, Roth, and SEP. IRAs are done with, usually, I'm going to say the usual because Roth is different, but with after-tax dollars. That means I worked, I bring home my check, then I purchase an IRA. With the traditional IRA, there's limits every year. This year is $7,000 unless I'm 50 or older, and I can put $8,000. So I take $7,000 of my money and I purchase an IRA, and then I use that money to go into the market. You get what I'm saying? Now with that, if it's a traditional IRA, on my taxes, when I get my taxes done, I tell my tax preparer, I put $7,000 or I put $1,000. And by the way, that's the limit. But you don't have to put $7,000 if you don't have it. You got $500, put $500. You got $250, put $250. But that's the most you can put. I'll tell my tax person, and on my tax return, they will subtract it off my taxes. And I get to write that off. However, it's time to take that money out later, I have to pay taxes on it then. So let's say I put in the $7,000, and then 10 years later, that $7,000 grew to $30,000. Then that whole $30,000, I gotta now start paying taxes on that. Okay, a Roth, same limits. The difference is, if I put the $7,000 in a Roth, I can't write that off my taxes. But when it's time to take that money out, it's all tax-free. So if that $7,000 grew to $30,000, I ain't got to pay no taxes on none of that at any time. And so Roths have a nice advantage. Finally, SEP. If you work for yourself, you can put up to 25% of your compensation, no more than $69,000, away in the market and write it off. All I'm saying is that there are ways. You can also, we talked about already, buy individual stocks and mutual funds, and we talked about that. Real estate is an investment. Precious metals, golds and silvers, are investments. Buying a business, starting a business, creating a business, cryptocurrencies, annuities, these are different investments. All I'm saying here is that investments are for the long term. I'm sorry, you wanted to get that? Investments are for the long term, and because you hope to live long term, you need to invest. Savings will not do it for you. It doesn't earn enough money, and the price of goods will go up because of inflation. You got to do more than just save. But you do have to save, but you need to also invest. So why should we invest money long term? Because the data says so. Here we go. It don't even matter who's in office. So some will say, I want a Republican in because the stock market do better, or I want a Democrat in. Here, look, if you had invested $1 back in 1925, in 2019, that $1 worth of investment in the market and again, it was in the S&P 500, would have been worth $10,000. And you see, other than this little lump here when Hoover got in, it was bad. The market was under $1, big time. What I'm saying was, under every president, it didn't matter if they were a blue or red president. It didn't matter if they're Democratic, the market has been doing well. You follow what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that the market has beat out everything. I'm gonna give you another example. If you contributed $10,000 a year from age 25 to 40, you would have given like a total of $150,000. And you stopped. At 40, you said, that's it. At 65, that 150 would have grown to 1 million if it was in the market. But let's say instead you waited till you were 35 years old and you put in this money and then you waited to 65. For you, that 300,000, which is more than this person put in, was now worth 838,000. Just showing you again and again, the market works, but the sooner you're in, the better, because it has more time to grow. Okay, Michelle, so my first part of this presentation, I see I got 10 minutes and I want to get to the second, and can you hand that out? The second main part. The first part is, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just savings, it's savings and investing. You have to, because it's for the long term, and as long as you want to live long term, you're going to need extra money. It's for the long term. The second point I want to make here is that a lot of times we don't know if we can retire. Some of us retire either because we have to, and I talked about reasons retired early. Some retire because now I'm 62, or now I'm sick of working, or now I'm 65. And then we retire. We may not have enough money, and then we go get a part-time job, and we're working again. This second part is a handout. The question is, how much do you really need to retire? Because I think the question shouldn't be, I'm 62, should I retire at 67? The question is, well, do you know how much you need to retire? I think that's the question. And if you have that money and you're 40, girl, retire if you want to. But if you don't have that money, you need to know what that number is to say, ooh, I got some work to do in order to retire the way I would like to retire. You get it? In your hand is a worksheet. This is for you. And we're not going to fill it out today, but I'm going to show you quickly how to fill it out. Because I don't think we know when to retire. I think we equate retirement with an age. And a lot of our white compadres are retiring at younger ages, because it's not about your age, it's about, can you afford to live the way you want to live in retirement? Here we go. There's 3 numbers that you need. First one, I would put the date, because I think this is something you should do at least once a year, twice a year, so you can see where you are with retirement. So I will put the date, today's date. The first thing you need to do is, number 1, estimate your expenses in retirement. And this is where people mess up, because you've been told that when you retire, you don't need as much money. That's a fallacy, and it's almost worse for a lot of us blacks. Let me tell you why. A lot of us don't get our dream home until we're in our 40s and 50s. And if you took out a 30-year mortgage, let's see, I got my dream home at 40, 40 plus 30 equals 70. My mortgage ain't gonna be cheaper in retirement if I retire in my 60s. You get what I'm saying? Now, if I bought my dream home in my 20s or 30s, well, now I don't have a mortgage, that's one thing. You get what I'm saying? But most of us, because of money and circumstances, and we wanna live, we start a starter home, and we wanna kind of get that dream, we got mortgages and we're old. You get what I'm saying? So a lot of times retirement, you're gonna be spending about what you're spending now in retirement. So the first job is, how much, if I was retired, would I be spending on these things? And like your budget yesterday, you gotta be honest with yourself. If you know you're gonna keep cable, if you know you would like to stay in your same house if you retired, you gotta put down all those prices. I broke this thing down. Home, healthcare, transportation, and let me pause on healthcare and wellness. Budget in that, God forbids. Nobody here gets any sicker than they are. But just numerical alone, and sin and the air and pollution and our food, you might get sick. So you might want to look at, should I put a little extra down for health and wellness? You get what I'm saying? The first job is to estimate what you think you'll spend in retirement. And by the way, it's on the left side of page 1, and if you flip over, there's a little bit at the top of the second page, there's some more. Other debts, other insurances, savings, gifts, and donations. Now, when you're finished, you're going to add up all those numbers, and that number becomes A. You see that box that says A? That A box is all of the expenses, not that you have today. It's what you think you'll have when you retire. Then it's number 2. Flip back over to the first page. Number 2, you're going to estimate, well, how much money will I have coming to me monthly in retirement? Will I get any alimony or child support? Will I have to work at McDonald's or Wendy's or a part-time job? How much income I think I'm going to have? How about any pensions, rental income? How about Social Security? Any annuities? Your whole thing is, how much do I think I'm going to get in retirement? You add all that up, and that is box B. Then you're going to look at all your retirement accounts. If you currently have a 401k or 403b, or you got money in the stock market, you're going to list all that down, and that becomes C. And this is how it all comes together. Before I do that, I just want to tell you that most Americans think they need about $1.3 million to retire, but in reality, they only got $89,000 saved. And you can look, these kids in their 20s says, I think I'm gonna need $1.2 million. They only got $35,000. So in all categories, people think they needed a lot, but they didn't even have it. Again, remember I told you, 1 out of 3 of us have nothing. So let's show you how this kind of works. I think these will be my expenses in retirement. And so I need $4,590. This is my A answer. Box A for me would have been $4,590. Then I'm thinking I'll get $2,200 in Social Security. I'm thinking that I had a pension. I don't, but I had a pension of $750 a month. And then I have some rental property. They're paying me $1,000 a month, but $500 if I need it for repairs and blah, blah, blah. So I'll live off the other 5. So then I'll have revenue of about $400. And so the formula says on back of page 2 says, how much do I need to retire? It says you would get this number here, you'll subtract this number here, and what's left? What's left is $1,140, which says I'm going to be short $1,140 every month if this is the way I want to retire and if this is the money that I'm going to get. Therefore, this is how much I need in investments. So before I can retire, I need to make sure my investments are $342,000. Well, Michelle, how did you get that? You take the amount of money you short every month, you multiply by 12, which means I'm short almost $14,000 a year. You take that number times 0.04, which is 4%, and it tells me I need $342 in the account. Why or how did I get this number? It's called the rule of 4%. What it's saying is that because the stock market on average has been doing so well, and how well it does, even with the down in big markets, that if you have at least if you have this number here in a retirement account, that it'll allow you to be able to withdraw $1,140 a month plus inflation, and you would have that money for at least 30 years. So if I retire in my 60s, at least 30 years, I should have enough money if I had $342,000 in investments. And I'm going to show you an example of one. Here's somebody who had $1 million in investments. That first year, the investments only returned 3.8%. So they took 10%, I don't think you can see it. They took their 4%, which is $41,000, and now their account is lower than they even put in there. But if you look here, by 18, they got over $1.3 million. They got more money here 18 years later than they started with, and that's with, there's a 3% return, but that was a negative 3.1. Here's negative 8% over time, but then you have years of 14s and 11s and 12s. This is showing that over time, the market just does what it does. Businesses thrive. We're in a capitalistic environment. So, how to figure out if you're ready to retire? You need to put together your expenses. Put together what you think your revenue is going to be. You're going to subtract the revenue after retirement from your expenses. You're going to divide that by that 4%. Then you look at your current investments and say, how much do I currently have? And the difference will tell you if you can retire quickly. Here's a full example. My expenses were $6,000. I think I'm going to get $4,500. I'm short $1,500. So my formula says, how much are you short? $1,500. If this number was not a positive number but a negative number, that means if this number was a negative number, that means I have at least $6,000 or more in revenue, I can retire because I have enough money coming in to cover all my expenses. But because it's not, then what's next, Michelle? Well, you need D times 12. I need $18,000 a year. And when I divide that by 0.04, I need $450,000 in retirement money in the market. How much do I really have in the market? When I looked at how much do I have in my 401k and 403b and da-da-da, I only have $275,000. So I need another $175,000, then I can retire. Now, why do I want you to see this? Because you might say, well, I'm 60 years old, and if I did this formula, I need like more money. So this gives you time today, before you retire, to figure out, my expenses can't be this high. Or what can I do to get my income? It gives you time today to make rational decisions for tomorrow. Now, this is more likely what most of ours look like, because in reality, if our expenses were 6, Social Security, right now, the average amount people are getting for Social Security is $1,800. They're not getting $22 on average. So if that's all I have no pensions, I ain't saved for retirement because I'm one of those people who are one out of 3 who got nothing for retirement. I'm only depending on Social Security, then I'm short $4,000 a month, which means I need $1.2 million. And according to that slide I showed you earlier, that on average people may have saved $80,000, if that's all I saved, I am really, really, really short, which means this life I thought I was gonna have, I can't afford it. So, what do? And we're closing it down. Immediately start investing, and investing more if you are investing. I'm not, this is just educational purposes, but you gotta put some money aside for the future. Also, please make sure that you fill out the worksheet. Here's another worksheet to get an idea of where you are, not to make you depressed, but to say, okay, Lord, this is a challenge here. What do you want me to do? What can I do differently? It'll help you look at your budget differently. What do I need to shave down so I can make sure I get money out of my paycheck to go into this 401k or 403b? You get what I'm saying? Then sometimes we are not honest with ourselves about after retirement. We'll say, oh, well, I don't need that much in groceries. I'll be older. I won't eat. So then I want you for 1 month to live like you were retired, to see, was that a realistic budget? Because you need to see realistically how you're gonna leave. I wanna tell you that I don't care how old you are, it's never too late. Even if you're currently in retirement and you know that Social Security ain't kicking it, you in trouble, there's still even something you can do. There is, as long as God gives you breath, there's grace, there's mercy, there's things that you can do even now. But you gotta wake up, so you can then see and ask God new things. Now you got something new to ask God to help you with, because now you see, I have a challenge here. Okay, I want you to work on decreasing your debt, because a lot of time that number about how much money you need is because you gotta cover that credit card payment. You gotta cover that car that you bought. Work on now reducing your debt or eliminating it, so that's less money that you need when you retire. How about setting up a Social Security account? If you don't already, they give you a letter. Some people get them once a year or once every so many years to say, if you retire, here's how much money you have. But you can set up your own account at ssa.gov. It will tell you at 62 you would get this, at 63 you would get, it will tell you how much you would get, and that helps you to know, because you might think, oh, you might get more than you think you might be getting. How about you may have to delay your retirement until you plan. You look at this and say, I was gonna retire at 62, you get what I'm saying? How about maximizing your employer's pension plan at work? That's pretty much what I'm saying here about investing more. Stretch yourself and do more. How about making additional money? Every time you earn more money, that's putting more into Social Security. Plus, you might say, I'm gonna get a part-time job, and all of the money I get from the part-time job, I'm gonna invest. Plus, that's going into Social Security, so now my Social Security would climb also. And then, this is a biggie. It's non-financial, but a lot of people, again, retire because they're 62, or their job says da-da-da-da-da, and they never thought about what else I'm gonna do in retirement. You gotta keep that brain going. You gotta keep that body moving, because you wanna live a long, healthy life so that you can serve God, be of service to man, and give to others. And so I need you to also think about your non-financial plan for retirement. Plan out what you wanna do before you do it, like the budget. Before you do it, have a plan. Ladies and gentlemen, all I know is this, that if you don't want to be broke, you must make sure that you're adequately saving and investing investing for retirement, because saving is for the short term. I showed you so many slides. Investing is just investing in a business. It makes more money than anything else in the long run. And you're gonna have a long run because you're claiming life and vitality in years, and you need to be able to take care of yourself during that time. Okay, tomorrow is my last day, and I want to talk about, please come back tomorrow, avoiding money traps, because that's another thing that keeps us broke. I hope that you will work on your personal budget, look at retirement, and put together a personal retirement worksheet so you get a realistic view, and then use that information to make you make decisions. And then I hope you come back tomorrow where we'll talk about avoiding some money traps that we get in that can cause us to be broke. That's it for me. It's actually 3:34. It's time for Q&As, but I know they're gonna kick me off the stage. But I wanted to make sure, and I'm sorry that this was a little longer and I might have talked a little more than I wanted to, but I wanted to make sure you understand the stock market. It ain't all that scary. You just invested in some businesses, and over time, you make money, and that's why your compadres are doing better financially, because they invest. We might save, but we don't really invest. We need to invest. And again, if you're gonna save, please put it in a safe account where you're earning interest and not under that mattress, which does nothing. I don't know if there's time for, but with that. Oh, here's the mic.
Unfortunately, we don't have the time afforded us for questions or Q&A today. I think because there is another session after this one, but we want to give Sister Michelle another hearty applause for that. What she's doing, great job, and I pray that I'm here. I had to miss yesterday, but today, even without lunch, I was here. Praise God. All right, Pastor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that there are sessions going back to back, just offering you a choice. Right behind us in the rear is another seminar sponsored by our women's ministry, and it's about rediscovering your dreams. It's never too late to start over. I'm a retired nurse, and I graduated with someone in nursing school at age 62. It's never too